Welcome back, everybody. We're diving deep today into Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at it through the eyes of Scout Finch.
Okay.
We've got some excerpts from the book itself.
All right.
It's labeled mockingbird.pdf in your source materials.
Gotcha.
And we're really going to be trying to understand what life was like in the American South back in the 1930s.
Okay.
You know, especially when it comes to things like childhood and race relations and justice.
That's quite a hefty topic
Oh, absolutely.
for one book to cover.
Absolutely. It's a big one.
Yeah. It's fascinating, though, isn't it?
It really is.
How it's both a coming-of-age story and at the same time it's making such a strong statement on these really, really complex social issues.
Yeah, it's really quite something.
It really is.
So like right off the bat,
Yeah.
Scout gives us this almost whimsical take on how Maycomb came to be.
Right.
It was founded by people who just wanted to be left alone after Andrew Jackson drove out the Creek Indians.
And you can't ignore the context. Right. This is the 1930s when figures like Andrew Jackson were still seen as heroes, especially in the South.
Absolutely.
So even Scout's like casual little comment,
yeah.
it really says a lot about Maycomb and how it sees history. It's like this historical consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really
It's
fascinating.
over the whole town.
It's baked right into the town.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
you've got Finch's Landing,
Right.
the family homestead.
Yep.
It's almost like a world unto itself, isn't it?
Exactly. Finch's Landing is practically self-sufficient.
Right.
And that really reflects the importance of land and tradition, that deep-seated Southern value.
Yeah.
But, even that's starting to change.
Yeah.
We see Atticus Scout's father, he breaks with tradition
Right.
by choosing to be a lawyer
Right.
instead of, sticking with the land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that makes you wonder, is he a sign of things to come or
Or an outlier.
an outlier? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, before we get too far ahead,
Yeah.
let's talk about Scout and her world.
All right.
She's got a really interesting family dynamic,
She does.
even for the time.
Uh-huh.
She's a total tomboy,
Bro.
being raised by her widowed father in Calpurnia, their black cook, who's really more like a family member.
Absolutely. And that right there,
Yeah,
that in itself is a statement in the Jim Crow South
it really is.
to have Calpurnia in that role.
And it makes you realize how much Calpurnia shapes Scout's worldview.
Oh, sure.
Right from the start.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Dill,
Oh, yeah.
their
yeah.
summer friend.
Right?
He comes in and really kind of stirs the pot a little bit.
He's that spark of mischief.
Yeah.
And, his obsession with Boo Radley,
Yeah.
it's what really launches this whole exploration of childhood innocence
Yeah.
versus, the realities of Maycomb.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, because
Yeah.
it's that classic kid thing.
Right.
You're terrified of something, but you're also fascinated by it.
Totally. Yeah, you don't understand it.
You don't understand it.
So it's both at the same time.
So speaking of not understanding,
Right.
Scout's first experience with school
Oh, yeah.
really throws her headfirst into Maycomb's social hierarchy.
Oh, absolutely. And that clash with Miss Caroline,
Right.
the new teacher who's totally clueless about how things work in Maycomb.
Yeah.
I think that's really symbolic, don't
Yes,
you?
oh, yeah.
It's like a microcosm
Yeah.
of the bigger cultural divide happening in the South back then.
Absolutely.
And that divide, it becomes even clearer
Yeah.
when you look at how families are treated differently. You've got
Right.
the Cunninghams,
Right.
poor but proud, and Atticus.
Yeah.
He not only respects them, but he goes out of his way to make sure they're treated fairly.
Right.
Which is a huge contrast to the Ewells,
Yeah.
who are basically like the town pariahs.
Yeah. There's the very bottom.
And it's through seeing, how these families are treated differently
Right.
that Scout learns one of Atticus's most important lessons. You can't really understand someone
Right.
until you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Exactly.
It's a good lesson.
But isn't that a lesson we're all still struggling with today?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you think about like social media and the echo chambers we all live in.
Right.
How often are we really trying to understand perspectives that are different from our own?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it really makes you realize how relevant this book still is.
It does.
Even though it's set almost a century ago.
Absolutely.
So you've got this backdrop of social tension, and then
Yeah.
you've got this Boo Radley character
Right.
who's like a living ghost story for these kids.
He represents the unknown, right?
Yeah.
The other that we're both afraid of and fascinated by.
Yeah.
And the kids aren't just playing games trying to lure him out.
Right.
They're trying to make sense of this world that suddenly seems a lot bigger
Yeah.
and more complicated than they thought.
Right. And Atticus, of course,
Yes.
shuts that down.
He tells them to leave Boo alone.
Right.
Another important lesson.
Yeah.
Right.
About respecting boundaries.
Yeah.
And recognizing that every...
That's been a recluse.
Yeah, even a recluse has a right to their privacy.
Has a right to be left alone.
Exactly.
But it's more than just privacy, isn't it?
It is.
It's about how we treat people who are different.
Right.
People who don't fit into our neat little boxes.
Exactly.
Okay, that's giving me chills.
Yeah.
Because you can already see how that theme is going to play out in a bigger way later on.
Oh, for sure.
But we're just setting the stage here.
Yeah, we're just setting the stage.
And speaking of setting the stage,
Yeah.
enter Tom Robinson.
Oh, boy.
A black man who's falsely accused of assaulting a white woman.
Mayella Ewell.
Mayella Ewell.
Talk about jumping into the deep end.
Right. I mean, it's like all of a sudden the story is holding up a mirror to this ugly reality of racial prejudice in the South.
And what's incredible is how Atticus, despite all the pressure from the community, chooses to defend Tom.
Yes.
He knows he's up against a system that's rigged.
Right.
But his sense of right and wrong, you know, his moral compass, it just won't let him do anything else.
Yeah, it makes you think about the cost of that kind of courage.
It does.
You know, because you get the sense that this decision is going to have huge consequences for Atticus and his family.
Big time.
And the way the townspeople react is really telling.
Oh, it is.
Some of them support Atticus.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are openly hostile.
Right.
It really underscores how divided Maycomb is.
Right, down the middle.
When it comes to race.
Yeah, it's like the trial is this pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And all these tensions are about to explode.
It's really intense.
And then you've got Jem Scout's brother.
Yeah.
Who starts out so idealistic.
Right, he believes in the justice system.
Yeah, he really believes in it.
Yeah.
And then that faith is completely shattered by the guilty verdict.
Oh, yeah. It's heartbreaking.
It is.
Because it represents this loss of innocence.
Right.
This realization that the world doesn't always play fair.
Especially when it comes to race.
Especially when it comes to race.
And then tragically, it gets even worse.
Right.
Tom Robinson is killed trying to escape prison.
Yeah.
A victim of a system that never gave him a fair chance.
It's a turning point in the story.
It is.
Because it highlights the brutal reality of racism.
Yeah.
And how it can destroy innocent lives.
Right, and it's this stark reminder that even when good people like Atticus try to do the right thing, they're often fighting an uphill battle against a system that's designed to oppress.
Exactly.
It's heavy stuff.
It is heavy.
But it's also what makes this book so powerful.
It's true.
And so enduring.
Absolutely.
But there's still so much more to unpack.
Oh, yeah. We've only just scratched the surface.
We've only just begun.
Of Maycomb's secrets.
Yeah.
And the complexities of Scout's journey.
Right. You know, it's interesting. Like, even with all this tragedy going on, Harper Lee still finds a way to weave in these moments of humor and childhood adventure.
Right.
You know, like, remember that scene with the mad dog, Tim Johnson?
Oh, yeah, Tim Johnson, yeah. On the surface, it seems like such a simple event.
Right.
A rabid dog threatening the neighborhood.
Everybody's terrified.
But it reveals so much about the characters and, you know, those simmering tensions beneath Maycomb's, you know, like seemingly peaceful surface.
Right. And it's Atticus who steps up.
Yeah.
Even though he hates violence.
He does. He's a pacifist at heart.
And then he just, like, takes the dog out with one shot.
Like it's nothing.
Right.
I know, it's amazing.
It's almost symbolic, wouldn't you say?
Totally.
It's Atticus the pacifist, forced to act to protect his community.
And for Scout and Jem, it like
totally changes
how they see their father. Yeah, suddenly he's not just the bookish lawyer anymore.
Right, he's a protector.
Yeah.
He can take charge when he needs to.
It shatters their preconceived notions about him.
It really does.
It reveals a depth to him
that
they hadn't fully understood before.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder for us, too.
Oh, for sure.
You know, we often make assumptions about people.
Based on limited information.
Based on limited information, yeah.
All the time.
And speaking of assumptions.
Okay.
Let's get back to Boo Radley.
All right.
I mean, throughout the story, he's been this, like, shadowy figure.
Right, shrouded in mystery.
Right, the subject of all these rumors and fears.
Yeah.
And then...
And that incredible climax he emerges.
As Jem and Scout's savior.
As their protector.
Protecting them from Bob Ewell.
Think about the irony.
Yeah.
Boo the recluse, this supposed monster,
right,
turns out to be the one with the most compassion.
I know.
most courage. It's like it completely flipped the script.
It flips the script on everything we thought we knew about him.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this act of heroism,
it
comes with a price.
It does.
Because if Boo's involvement becomes public,
right,
he's going to be thrust into the spotlight.
which is the last thing he wants.
Which is the last thing he wants.
So that's where Hecate, the sheriff, makes that really controversial decision.
To cover it up.
To cover it up.
He claims that Bob Ewell fell on his own knife.
It's morally ambiguous.
It really is.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he's bending the law.
He is.
But he's doing it to protect someone vulnerable.
He is.
So it makes you think, is he right?
Yeah.
To prioritize compassion over the law?
Is there ever a time when it's okay to bend the rules?
That's a tough question.
It's a question with no easy answers.
And it kind of ties back to what we were talking about before.
Right.
About empathy.
Empathy and understanding those who are different.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And Boo Radley becomes this powerful symbol.
Of the other.
Of the other, someone who's ostracized and feared.
Just because he's different. And it makes you think about
how we treat those who don't conform to societal expectations.
So are we any better than the people of Macomb?
It's a challenge.
It is.
To confront our own prejudices, you know, to really see those who seem strange or unfamiliar.
And to see them as deserving of compassion.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about...
We've covered a lot.
Social hierarchies.
Yeah.
Racial injustice. The complexities of morality.
Right.
But there's another layer to this story.
Okay.
That I find really fascinating.
What's that?
Hypocrisy.
Ah, yes.
I mean, hypocrisy is practically a character in itself.
It really is.
In To Kill a Mockingbird.
And maybe the most striking example is Miss Gates' Scout's teacher.
Miss Gay, oh yeah.
Remember that scene?
Where she's condemning Hitler?
Yes, condemning Hitler.
Persecuting the Jews.
Right, talking about how terrible it is to treat people differently because of their religion.
Right, and then moments later, she's making prejudiced remarks.
About Macomb's black community.
It's almost too perfect.
It's that juxtaposition between her words and her actions.
It's unbelievable.
It reveals how blind she is to her own biases.
Right.
This disconnect between what she says she believes and how she actually behaves.
And it's not just her.
Oh, it's not?
Remember the Missionary Society meeting?
Oh, gosh, yes.
I mean, these ladies are all expressing sympathy.
It's for the Maruna tribe in Africa, right?
But they're totally oblivious
to the struggles of their own black neighbors.
It's like they can only see injustice.
When it's far away.
When it's far away.
When it doesn't require them to do anything uncomfortable.
Right. And it really makes you wonder.
Are we any different?
Are we any different?
Really?
We turn a blind eye to injustice.
When it's more convenient.
When it's easier.
When it's less disruptive to our lives.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a tough question. And I think it's one that Harper Lee really wants us to wrestle with.
She does.
You know, she's not just telling a story. She's holding up a mirror.
To human nature.
To human nature, yeah.
Yeah.
And forcing us to confront our own flaws.
And that's what makes this book so powerful.
It's true.
It's not just a historical artifact.
Yeah.
It's a timeless commentary on who we are.
Right. Wow. It's amazing how much we've uncovered.
I know, right?
Just from these excerpts.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we've only just dipped our toes.
Barely scratched the surface.
Into this whole world.
Of Macomb.
Of Macomb.
Yeah.
And Scout's journey.
And yet there's already so much to think about.
So much, yeah.
The hypocrisy, the social divisions, the justice system.
It's all connected.
It really is. It's all woven together.
Yeah.
But I think for me, one of the things that stands out the most is Scout's journey. You know, she starts out so innocent.
Right, with this black and white view of the world.
Yeah, good folks and bad folks.
But as the story goes on, her perspective really changes.
It does. It shifts dramatically.
She's forced to confront these complex issues.
Yeah, like race and class and justice in ways that most kids her age never even have to think about.
And she's not just watching from the sideline.
No, she's right there in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Asking questions.
Challenging assumptions.
Trying to make sense of things that even adults struggle with.
Right.
Which I think brings us back to one of the cool themes of the book.
Okay.
The power of perspective.
Yeah, remember how Scout describes Macomb's social hierarchy?
At the beginning?
At the beginning?
Right.
It's all very clear cut.
Good folks and bad folks.
But then,
as she gets older and sees more of the world,
those lines start to blur.
They do.
Yeah, she starts to realize that people
are more complicated.
Are more complicated than those simple labels.
Yeah. Think about the Cunninghams.
Right.
Poor, but with this strong sense of pride and integrity.
Exactly.
And then the Ewells.
At the opposite end of the spectrum.
Right, representing the underbelly of Maycomb.
Yeah, trapped in this cycle.
Of poverty and ignorance.
Yeah, it's like she's realizing that judging people...
based just on their social standing.
Right, or their family name.
Is a really dangerous oversimplification.
It is.
And that ties back to Atticus's most famous lesson.
The one about walking a mile in someone else's shoes.
Exactly.
It's such a powerful idea.
It is.
But so hard to actually do.
It's really challenging.
You know, because it means stepping outside our comfort zones.
And trying to see the world.
Through someone else's eyes.
Exactly.
And that's where empathy comes in.
It does.
It's not just understanding someone's perspective.
It's about feeling what they feel.
Connecting with them on a human level.
Right.
Which is why Scout's journey is so important.
Absolutely.
She shows us that empathy is something we have to work at.
It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
You have to exercise it.
And it often gets stronger.
Through those challenging experiences. Okay. And this book...
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Is full of challenging experiences.
Yeah, from facing racial injustice...
To confronting her own prejudices.
Scout's constantly having to expand.
Her understanding of the world.
Yeah, and the people in it.
Right.
It's a reminder that real growth often happens.
Outside our comfort zones.
When we have to face uncomfortable truths.
About ourselves and the world around us.
And those moments in the book where we see hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Gates condemning Hitler.
But then showing prejudice against her black neighbor.
Yeah, or the missionary society.
Concerned about a tribe in Africa.
But ignoring the suffering in their own community.
Right. Those scenes are so powerful.
They are.
Because they make us look at ourselves.
Yeah. Are we any different?
Are we living up to our own values?
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
yeah,
I think the biggest takeaway for me is the importance of self-reflection.
I agree.
We can't just read this book and think, oh, that was sad.
And move on.
We have to really think about its themes.
And how they connect to our own lives.
Yeah.
To the world today.
It's about recognizing that the fight for justice and equality
is still going on.
Yeah, and it requires us to be aware.
To be empathetic.
And to challenge our own assumptions.
Exactly. To Kill a Mockingbird isn't just a book.
It's a call to action.
Yeah, a reminder that we all have a part to play.
In making the world a better place.
A more just and compassionate world.
So that brings us to the end
of our deep dive.
We hope you enjoyed this exploration
of Mockingbird.pdf.
And that it's given you some new insights.
And maybe even some uncomfortable questions.
Why? Because those uncomfortable questions
are often the most important ones.
They are.
So keep thinking.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
And keep trying to walk a mile.
In someone else's shoes.
Thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.